Finally, with a few technical glitches, I've got it up and running. So welcome to Friday's Bellevue Speedway live Facebook page that we've got running. So obviously this has become a tradition for Bellevue Speedway to do this and to give us some content and let you know what's happening and definitely what's not happening in the world at the moment, especially in the Speedway world. So if we had some questions come in, just fire away and I'll try and answer them as best I can. We've had some good guys, the riders in the last couple of weeks have some good sessions and some good, questions and obviously let you guys know what they've been up to, and I'm no different. So fire away with your questions and I'll try and answer them as best I can. But obviously just an update, I think for all of you, obviously in the UK at the moment, we're still currently under the lockdown directive from the government, which is, obviously to be assessed or due to be reassessed on May the 7th. So far as we're concerned, there's not a lot we can do as a governing body until those restrictions or the guidelines or, the measures are reassessed and put in place. But it's great to hear that yesterday with the daily updates that happen at 5 o'clock on most days, that Bojo, our Prime Minister of Great Britain, Boris Johnson, said that the pandemic is reached its peak, and hopefully that's good news to come, and we can sort of start to see the downturn of it and maybe get back to somewhat life as we once had before. But first, I'd like to say that happy 100th birthday to Captain Tom Moore. Fantastic job what he's done in raising so much money for the NHS. It's been tremendous. So well done to him. And I think it's give everyone in the country, and probably globally, to be quite frankly, a bit of a lift. So we need that in these current times. But I hope you guys are all staying safe and doing as the government guidelines of, staying at home, washing your hands and doing all those things, and obviously protecting the NHS and saving lives. So, but we'll fire away with some questions. That's some that are coming in earlier. From Linda Egan. What are the guys doing to keep fit and focused as they can't practice? I would assume, I've had a little communication with the boys because there's not a lot to report, but they're all pretty self-motivated individuals. Pretty much, when we put a team together, you look at the guys that can actually, do the hard yards behind the scenes and prepare themselves best they can. But I know for a fact, they're all motivated and they're doing their best they can. Some have got jobs, obviously to provide for their families, and some of them just keep busy. Like Dan's out riding push bike and motorbike on the family property. What Steve Lawson's, and the other guys are sort of doing their best bit. Max. I spoke with Max, and we had Max. What's his name? He was on the treadmill, and I've seen a few other guys doing their training behind the scenes, and I'm sure our boys are doing exactly the same. But another one from Paul Finnegan. Whether there will have to be team changes if our season starts here and choosing Poland, Sweden, and Denmark. Now, interesting question. We're still in unknown territory at the moment, so it's pretty likely that there's things that might not look the same, but we don't know. There's obviously a lot of talk about Poland at the moment and making the boys go over there, but we currently look at the numbers. I think there's only 7 or 8 riders that probably would affect, in say for the Poland, for instance. We know Denmark and Sweden aren't operating at the moment like ourselves, so in the UK. So we'd have to look at it and monitor a lot closer to the time. So it's very hard to say that there'll be team changes, but I think it would come down to what riders are available in the rider pool and when we get going. So another question I had, what do you think that the impact another one will be if Poland race behind closed doors, the riders have to choose between Poland or taking any chance of any race in the UK? And that's from Anthony Atkins. Just along the lines what I just mentioned before. The Poland are obviously putting contracts out to the extra Liga. I think only the extra Liga at this moment, which is the highest division in Poland, asking them riders to be based in Poland through the duration of the season, and with obviously implications that if they can't travel unless the restrictions are lifted. So that'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. I think there's a lot of measures that have to be, can be considered. Obviously, the boys travelling with their health trouble. What would happen if they contracted the coronavirus, and what the situation how it would affect them in Poland. But that's a personal thing that the riders will have to make a decision, and how far that can actually be implemented. We'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be interesting if that does come off. But obviously Poland pay the boys a lot of money. I see there's pay cuts and such, but it'd be interesting because obviously if Grand Prix get up and running, how they go from traveling from country to country, and what guidelines from particular countries allow free movement of travel in this current pandemic. So I think a lot has to change in that instance. But Poland are doing that in their own sort of way, and we've got to watch that. But we've got to be focused on what we're doing here in the UK. From Martin Clayton, what do you realistically think that we are likely to see any racing at Bellevue this year? I mean, we're very hopeful. We're obviously monitoring the government guidelines as everybody else is, and we can only be guided by that. As Bojo said yesterday, the peak has passed, hopefully, and we can sort of the downturn, and we can get back to some measures of lifting lockdown restrictions and getting probably sporting events up and running. Because I'm pretty sure, like yourselves, like myself, you want to see some live action and want some activities to go and be entertained by. So Netflix is great, but I don't want to spend all day indoors watching TV. So I want to get out there like yourself. So I would like to be. I'm very hopeful and optimistic that we can get some speedway back this year. What will that look like, and when will that be? It's too hard for me to answer that because I think there's too many unknowns at the moment. So thanks, Martin. Nigel Pearson, how is your cricket these days? Cheers, Nigel. Yeah, marvellous, as Nigel would always say. My cricket's never been that flash, to be quite honest. Proud Aussie, like watching cricket and watching the internationals. I won't mention any sandpaper jokes. But my cricket's not real flash, but I don't mind getting out there and having a bash. I was a couple of years ago, we had some friends and we played in a nice park up in near Nantwich, and it was a great day, except for my leg blew out, so that wasn't much fun. John Newton, Bellevue Sporters 1955. John, hi John. Are there any problems with our Australian riders who may be at home and unable to get flights to the UK? The Australian riders, we've got Brady and Jamin returned back to Australia. Jai is residing up in Berwick, so there's no issue with Jai. The situation would be if we needed the guys back, for a start, we'd obviously have to give them some time to get back. But there are flights. Some Middle East airlines are still flying frequently. So if you go on flight trackers and whatever, you can see these planes are up in the, there's hundreds of flights still flying. So yeah, they could get back. The cost to get them back would probably be a lot higher than normal. But yeah, there's still flights, and I think obviously as the restrictions lift, I think you would see more airlines commuting. So I don't emphasise any real problem not getting those guys back. It's just the freedom of the borders, and every country is going to be different on how much we're going to see the movement between countries. And so yeah. Cheers, John. Jim. And also, Jim's giving me another question. Are you aware that you're up against the ghost of the late Dent Oliver and his influence on your old patrons, of which there are a vast proportion? There's quite a few of them, and we appreciate their support. Jim, obviously, I don't confess to be a historian of a speedway, let alone Bellevue. I'm very much aware of Dent Oliver and what he did for the club and as a rider, and team manager and general manager of the Hyde Road days, and a very successful one at that. Winning 3 championships in a row was pretty good before his timely death in 1973. But we have recognised Dent as the Manager's Year Award. His trophy is officially named after Dent Oliver, so we have the Dent Oliver Manager's Trophy. And obviously he did an amazing job. Former world finalist. The ghost of late, I don't know how to elaborate that one, but if I could emulate what his achievements done, I'd be very, very proud. I'm sure many Bellevue supporters would be very, very happy with them as well, because we've been sort of denied some success in silverware for some time, and obviously Denton, that team, that era, obviously Phil Collins, Ivan Major, Soren Sorensen, and the list goes on. That they're obviously pretty tremendous back in them, high rolling days of the Speedway. So thanks, Jim. So we'll do our best. Okay, let's go over here and see what we've got over on these comments coming through. So Adrian Snowden, have you ever rode a micro scooter? I have actually. I actually repaired one when a mate of mine he's had a bit of trouble with the bearings and drive shaft, and we managed to repair one. And I had a little play on that, and they were pretty dangerous and pretty quick too, I must admit. So, Craig Smith. Rumours are flying around that the season may start in September and run September, October, November. Polish League gets green light after the Polish League gets green light. With Polish leagues requesting the riders to station themselves in Poland, is that a realistic possibility for British Speedway so we get all the riders available? Thanks, Craig, for that comment or question. We obviously got to come up with permutations of how the league fixture will look, trying to get a league in, and no one can actually answer those questions straight, because we don't have any government guidance of how we can operate in the stadiums and as a sport, and we've got to take into mind all the sanitarian sort of process and measures that might be put in force in this current pandemic. So we'll obviously look at all options. I mean, I think you can probably squeeze a league season in if you have to start as late as September. Hopefully we don't. As far as if the riders were unavailable from Poland, what I understand, if they do go, they're contracted to up until 31st of October, so that causes a problem for some riders if the travel restrictions aren't lifted. But there's only, like I said, I think I mentioned before, there's only 7 or maybe 8 riders that are sort of contracted to the extra league. So yeah, it does give us a slight problem, but not a major problem. And we might have to sort of rejig the teams possibly to fulfill the sides, or even maybe looking at downsizing the teams from 5, 6, or 7 from 7. There's lots of permutations, lots of things we're going to be thinking about before we actually come up with any hard, fast decisions. But we just really got to get the green light first before we can really fundamentally work out how it's going to look and go. But I'm sure that will be all considered by the directors of the British Speedway. June Young, hi guys, missing your Speedway so much. Stay safe. Nice one, June. Afternoon, Bob and Neil. In Belle, hi Mark, are you going to manage the team remotely from Australia this year? Well, no, Ian, because I'm in isolation in the UK. So no, I'm here in the northwest of England, and sort of as my base. So this being from Australia, getting home would be the hardest part. So no, not a problem there. Ian. Will Haynes, when are the shirts available online, Mark? Feel an order incoming. Yeah, we've got obviously the shirts and actually we've got the new soft shell tops, which look pretty impressive too. So we can't wait to get them out. But it's just obviously the stadium is in lockdown at the moment, so really that's where all the stock is. So it's impossible for us to send orders out. But once we get the green light and we're able to access the stadium, and we get them orders, you can send those orders in and we can get them sent out to you guys in a heartbeat, no problem. So we look forward to taking your orders, and so they look pretty impressive actually. So no worries, Linda. Gene Murphy, Are you still involved with Torrent in Poland? No, Gene, I'm not. I just helped out last year as a sort of pretty much well document as an advisory role. Torrent obviously went down to the first division, but no, I'm not involved. I have a lot of conversations with people in Torrent and obviously other Polish clubs, and just not Poland, but around the world. So no, not directly involved with them this year. No. Simon Bradshaw, if the season starts on the June the 15th, what will the format of the league will be, home and away instead of once or twice? Like I just passed on the comment before, that all has to be reviewed. It's a matter of being able to see what we can fit into the season, into the calendar. Ideally, we'd love to keep the two home and away in place, but is it realistic? Not too sure. But that's all being monitored, and we'll try and give, whenever we get a start date, I think the interest is to give as much speedway as we can. Obviously, we have season ticket holders, pay for a season. That would obviously have to be dealt with if we didn't get a full season. So there's lots of things to take into consideration. But realistically, if the ACU, which is the governing body of British motorcycling, they've got a closure, I guess, on the permit situation up until the 31st of May. Our British Association obviously said we've got June the 15th as a deadline to before we can go ahead. Realistically, if everything, we're only at the start of May now, so we're still 6 weeks away before anything probably could happen. We've got time to sort of sit down and around the table and work out how that could look. So there's a possibility that we could see a full season, but it might be. I think there may be some restrictions and sort of cut down fixtures, but that everything will have to be monitored and reviewed, and that will be done by the association. Clean Mary Alice. Mark, how are you and your family? I'm very good, thank you. Did you see the Glasgow Tigers red film May last season? I haven't actually watched it. I will watch it. I do plan to watch it, and you might ask why I haven't watched it. There's been plenty of time to do, but I have been sort of busy doing other things and bits and pieces. But I've seen the reports about it. It seems quite good, and any sort of speedway kind of documentary footage is fantastic. But the guys up in Glasgow, the centres, the seniors, I should say, have done a wonderful job, transforming, the track, the stadium, and probably, setting the benchmark as how we should portray our sport. So they've done a wonderful job. But no, I will take time and definitely watch that. So, John Houston, do you think the teams will be back on the track in 4 weeks? I'm pretty confident that it's not going to happen in 4 weeks, John. As like I said, the ACU sort of with the restriction of permits is up until the 31st of May. So we're definitely 5 weeks away. And then obviously, I'm sure the BSBA could review the June the 15th date if necessary, if everything changed with the government guidelines and restrictions. And obviously, we need to see lockdown, for life, really, first and foremost, being lifted and how they implement, breaking that down and allowing us to sort of access real life again. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that one and see. Neil Drummond, how are you, Neil? Neil's our Bellevue timekeeper and announcer from the box upstairs. I hope you're keeping well, you and Lou. Any rider that lives in Poland for the duration of their domestic season will still have to leave the country for the GPs, so it must be a minefield. I would imagine. I believe there's an FIM really focusing on how everything could work. I would imagine in their position, it would be an absolute minefield and be a nightmare to try and reorganise it because they're postponing, cancelling, FIM qualifying, championship events, left, right and centre. So I think they're having a bit of a difficult time. I mean, I'm sure BSI would have, the commercial rights holder of the World Championship Speedway Grand Prix. They're working closely with the FIMs and seeing how that will look and what rounds they can get in. We as a club at Bellevue, we've been working closely with BSI and the ACU and the FIM and the Manchester City Council. As you would have seen, we've rescheduled the Speedway of Nations for the 24th and the 25th of October, which obviously was due to go next weekend. The so-called long weekend, bank holiday weekend, next weekend. So yeah, absolute minefield. It's going to be very testing to see how they go. But the problem I think they've got is obviously the different countries and the different regulations and guidelines and restrictions, lockdowns and travel restrictions and border closures, and there's it's just nuts. Mike Grundy. There you go. My mustard trousers. Well, it'd be nice to be wearing the mustard trousers. I kind of retired them, to be fair, but if we could get the chance to get Speedway on, I would happily put them back on. Neil Sheen, he says, do you think there'll be a GP in Cardiff this year? It's not for me to say, but like reading it from the Welsh government and that, obviously they've got the Dragon's Heart hospitals, assembled there at the moment. And I'd seen some of the reports on the Rugby of the Six Nations that were going to be there in New Year, that they might be doubtful. So, I wouldn't like to say anything, but it's not looking good. But that's the call from the BSI to make, and it's only what I'm reading, so they'll know a whole bunch more. But it'd be great to see it. But I think when we look at the mass, crowds, restrictions that we may be enforced and put on us, that would make it very difficult for 45,000 people to rock up to a stadium. You're looking at obviously the Football League, playing behind closed doors, to being allowed for BSI to run the event, put all that infrastructure to put a speedway track into a stadium and have no crowd. I think it would absolutely be financial suicide, but that's up for them to work out. It'd be great to see Cardiff and lift everyone's spirits if we knew that could go ahead. Craig Smith, should the season be cancelled? Will the government be helping teams like Bellevue support, and so they can come to the test in 2021? There's many government incentives and schemes out there at the moment to support businesses, and obviously we, like any other business, would obviously be welcome any support and assessing our current situation. But we're a little bit off that right now because no offense, I know it seems like a eternity right now where this pandemic's been, but we're only gone through like 6 weeks of it, and things hopefully as quick as it came upon us, it'd be nice to think it could disappear. So that's something that we'd have to reassess, and we're not looking at cancelling the season right now, but we obviously only can be informed by the government guidelines. Alan Atherton, how are you, Alan? What do you think of the money offered in Poland? 38k signing on and for points. It'd be pretty good to get offered that. Quite honest, I feel like I better get in training myself and get in shape to fit into those Kevlars. I'd sign that in a heartbeat. The money in Poland has been tremendous for a number of years. They've elevated the sport to the highest I've ever known it. Probably the people that can probably relate from the Freddie Williams and the guys back in the day in the 50s, to how it was, and the Peter Cravens, to how the sport was then and what they could earn in comparison. But it's pretty impressive. I feel sorry for them to taking a pay cut of that sort of money, but you also got to weigh up the risk of concern. If a rider happened to get injured and go into hospital, hospital's obviously a safe haven, but in this pandemic, the risk of catching COVID-19 and being in a foreign hospital doesn't really, I'm not sure how much value you can put on that. So the humanitarian side of it too, you have to consider. So it's it's a big risk for the boys to go ahead and do it in the current situation, but it's pretty impressive the money that they can pay. I would love to think that the UK could be on that parallel one day, but we're a long way off that. But good luck to them. Joanne Lewis Lyon, good afternoon. Hope you're keeping well. I am. Bellevue have a good side this season. Looking forward to seeing the boys race. I think our sentiments are exactly the same. I think we managed to assemble a very good-looking team, a very much a team that could prosper and develop and build on their averages. So there's a lot of key fundamentals that I think that was sort of paramount to putting us at the top and chasing silverware, and obviously the bookies thought so too, because we came in as favourites, so that's always nice. So yeah, appreciate that, Joanne. CBS Bins, hi guys. If you don't know, CBS Bins are the main sponsors for the team Australia, and obviously been through the Baker family, been very instrumental in junior speedway in the past, and one of the founding pioneers of the junior speedway in Adelaide. And Steve Baker was a European under-21 champion, which is now known as the World Under-21 champion, and they do a lot for Australian speedway. So cheers, guys. Joanne Lewis Lyon, what are your thoughts on Mr. Crump coming back? Well, obviously, I'm a friend of Jason's, and we've had many conversations. And when he thought about it, I think my first words were, "You're mad. You're nuts. What are you doing? What, you don't need to do it." But there's a niche there, and he wants to do it. And I personally, he retired way too young, as far as I was concerned. He's been back riding. He's been getting into shape, and there's no question. Jason in his day was the best. I mean, he's definitely one of the. He's the best Australian we've ever produced by far. But as a mate, I think the risk and the dangers and kind of like cringe, but he's definitely class. So I think it's a real punch in the pocket for British Speedway to have him come back. And obviously we were going to see him at the Peter Craven, and I was very much looking forward to that. So I don't know about you guys. So no, I think it's great addition. I still think he's nuts. So. Hi, Glenn Birchall. Hi, Mark. Outside the current 7 aces, who would be your dream riders to have at Bellevue? Don't be shy with your answer. I think, dream rider, I think it's a hard one. I mean, you got to look at it from a lot of aspects. As a team, who comes in and can deliver the goods, fit in with the boys. But hey, like you look at Bartos Smarzlik at the moment, the way he rides, I think if any club, any league around the world would want to sign Bartos. But Ty Wolfenden, it'd be great to have Ty at Bellevue and the Bellevue colours. I know probably Wolverhampton supporters wouldn't be too keen on that, but I think Ty brings a lot to a club, a lot of presence and performance and a lot of aspects that he brings. But there's a lot of great riders out there at the moment that aren't sort of coming to the UK that I'd love to have, but I don't think one really stands out as much. I mean, I was gutted to lose Kenneth Bier and Max Frick from last year's team, so would love to have one of them two back. But I'm pretty happy with the 1 to 7 that we have on board. So I guess I have 7 dream riders. Andrew Jeffrey, hi Mark, not Bellevue related. Do you wish you had signed for Edinburgh at any point of your career? I seem to remember you guesting every week for us. I did. I think it was like 2009. I think I was up there every other week. I believe that was the year that Edinburgh won the league. Always enjoyed the track. Always a very challenging track, Edinburgh. Very hard to go there as an away rider. But I always had a lot of admiration for the Edinburgh management. Maybe it might go back to my early days. I think when I first came over, I did Brett Saunders' testimonial. I think it might have been 1991, possibly, and always had a nice affiliation and affection to the Edinburgh guys. So I rode for a lot of clubs. Surprised I didn't get to ride for Edinburgh, but that particular years I did probably more meetings than I've probably done from some other clubs in the past. I have no regrets not riding for Edinburgh. I mean, I said I like to think I've served a lot of clubs well and enjoyed my time with other clubs, but the list is pretty long. Powered by pies. I think this could be an alias website, not website, person from Facebook. We're not able to get a pie fix at the stadium. Where would the best place to get pies from? I wonder. I actually haven't put my Belle and pies order in yet, but I plan to. But I think that we can't look anywhere else at the moment than our own cult, legend, Paul Bowen and the Bowen Pies. Do you think Polish Speedway will be sustainable without fans? Well, it's hard for me to know. I don't know the finances, but they've got a very good and very lucrative media contract. But I think the key thing is that they've asked us to take a pay cut. And I don't think they've just been take a pay cut because what's going on. I think it's very difficult for a club to survive. You've got no income revenue. You lose a lot of income revenue from program sales, catering, merchandise. There's those little extras that help the club survive. Whether it's 50%, I don't know, but I think it's going to be challenging. There's going to be added measures for them to put in place that will come at a cost. Security. I mean, I can't help feel that the security outside the stadium is going to be bigger than what will be in the side of the stadium, because the Polish fans are pretty mad and they want to see their speedway. So we keep it to be a difficult job just keeping them outside the stadium. I think they're doing everything they can to try and get the sport up and running. And I think in this current time, we need sport as an entertainment to keep our sanity. I think we're all sort of desperate for some malady. Just whether it's football, baseball, whatever it is on the TV, we're not seeing no live sport. So I think it's a great incentive if they can get up and running. I think it's necessary. Where it's sustainable, I'm sure they've got some pretty clever guys out there. I'm sure that they've crunched the numbers and they've made sure it's going to be viable. So, like I said, Poland has really in the last 10, 15 years taken the lead, and they're certainly running it very well. Graham Wellington. Hi, Graham. Brady, Dan have to decide to do Poland alone and not at all. Any ideas who is dropping Poland and staying here to ride? I know for a fact that the contracts don't have to be in until next week, I believe. So at this point in time, I've not heard whether they've made any decisions on that or not. I get that conversation will be definitely held, but until they've actually made those decisions, we can't really make any assessments on that. So, but it's not no comment. It's just I don't know. Haley Blythe, Rob Goff has said won't run behind closed doors. Understandably, given the way the British Speedway is funded, are there any ongoing discussions with TV about that sort of deal, similar to what Poland are planning? We're not really privileged to a lot that's happening from the directors. I know they're due to sit on the 12th. You're quite right, Rob, to be saying can't run behind closed doors. It would be financial suicide for us to do it. It's even like with the current lockdown and the restrictions, it's in place with the elderly people. We have a lot of volunteers that help us out. Wouldn't be available to make us operate a race meeting. I believe there's lots of discussions going on. I'm not privileged to them, but I'm sure our directors are doing the best for the interest of the British Speedway at the moment. So we'll just have to wait and see what comes of that. But I'm certain they're not sat on their butts doing nothing. I'm sure they're racking their brains and doing the best they can to see what it look like and how it can financially work. Pete Shaw, morning boss. When can we get back to work on board? Well, join the club, Pete. We're on the same predicament, mate. So we're just fingers crossed that can be sooner rather than later. And he does a great job, Pete, on the flags at the start. He's a start marshal at Bellevue. Free to Clegg. Where's Kilderman? Can't even turn up for a press and practice. Well, that's not true. Peter's, he's based in Denmark. So probably a lot of people don't know Peter's wife, or partner, not wife, gave birth on the week of the practice, and lockdown really pretty much came in around that particular time. So the reason he wasn't available for press and practice was really due to this pandemic and the quarantine restrictions he would have had getting back into Denmark. And I certainly, and as a club, we weren't going to enforce him to operate outside the government guidelines. So it was very much a relationship decision there that we worked with Peter, and wasn't that he didn't want to be there. He definitely wanted to be there. And so I said, so Peter's at home. He's obviously got a newborn. Just you have to put things into perspective here, and we all felt best that Peter stayed in Denmark to obviously to safeguard the health and safety of his pregnant partner at the time, and I can say that they obviously had a baby boy. So well done to the Kildermans. And hi Mark. Hi. For me, the two outstanding upcoming riders last year was Lindsay and Kubera. How professional is Jamin off the track? Well, I happen to see a lot of Jamin because he actually resides here with us in the UK. It was never agreed, but he just ended up rocking up and staying here. But we don't mind. No, very professional. Yep, he's to be sort of rated with Kubera. It's real credit because they're very, very good. And Jamin's going places. He had a credible 5th place in the Australian Championship, which was quite exceptional. Against a lot of experience. I think he needed the UK last year to hone his skills, and I'm sure someone like Kubera could actually benefit by those as well. So he's rounding his skills. Is Jamin and certainly got a bright future. But like any young professional that sort of takes to the speedway, there's a lot of factors that come into play. And depending on how far you can go, but he's heading in the right direction, and we're glad we've got him at Bellevue. Barrowcliff, watch double match meetings be variable is desired? Would double match meetings be viable if desired? So they're never really desirable and financial, to be quite honest. Whenever a club puts a double header on it, it's not really for the financial gain of the club, definitely. It just means trying to get the meetings on. So no is the answer. It's a lot of things will have to come into play for that to work. Malcolm Hewitt, what is your view of levelling up the racing by adding weight to the bikes of the lighter riders, suggested by Scott Nicholson's star this week? Great debate. It's not new. It's been around for a very, very long time. And I loved young Dan Bewley's comments about the low on the basketball ring. This class, and obviously the BMX. It's a difficult one because I think we're missing a trick here. I don't think it's the weight's the concern. The weight is such a the reason we're so focused on the weight now is because the configurations of the engines that we're using. We have baby engines we have short conrods in them, and they rev like a 2-stroke, and they've got no torque. Years gone by, the conrods were a lot longer in the engine, so they produced a different riding ability. It was a more rounded torque, you use your throttle, a lot more control. Where now these boys are you just pin and go, and it's evolution. You can't stop that because they're getting high end speed, and their performance is great when they work. But for them to operate effectively, you need a really good track. And you hear a lot of the boys complain about the track, and it's not because the track is completely bad. It's the bikes don't handle rough tracks no more. The heavy dirt. They're just, you can't stop it, park it, and turn it and drive off no more like you used to be able to. So I want to say the baby engines have probably been around maybe 10 years, but more frequently in the last sort of 7 or 8 years. So I would like to see something more done with the engine, not so much the rider weight issue, because a big guy, on a big heavy track, even with these current engines, can probably handle himself. And then you got the problem with the light guy on a slick track. He struggles to get the power to the ground. But you could probably say, well, someone light could always put weight on their bike, where it's very difficult for a big guy to take weight away. So it's an interesting topic. I don't see it changing, but I would like to see the configurations of the engines being changed so there's more torque, and the riders can use their skill level more so than actually their bravery. Craig's me. If we get a full season, do you think we will lift the fixed race night rule to allow clubs to fit fixtures in when they possibly can, obviously taking into account rider availability? The key to that one is rider availability. Yes, you can move race nights if necessary, but if there's I think what we've seen over the last couple of years, when I'm in favour of the fixed race nights, simply because you guys get to see your team every week, where I remember the first couple of years as team manager, you would spend so much time on the phone just trying to get replacements, guest riders, and you're rocking up with a licorice all sorts team, and it takes the atmosphere away from it and the dynamics of what you're trying to achieve away. And we've seen that work much better. I'm pretty confident you fans and supporters want to see your favourite 1 to 7 riders every week. So I think moving the race nights wouldn't be an issue, but it's the rider availability. And like I said, the rider pool is a lot smaller these days. So that's hence why the ISL, the International Speedway League Bureau, has been made up to control these countries and the movements, so that we all get a piece of the pie. But it's possibly for us to get all the fixtures in. We probably will have to look at running off race nights to do it. So yeah, it's like I said, there's so many things to be looked at and considered. Graham Darlington, with flight restrictions, is going to be hard to get some riders to Britain. Yeah, true, but I think in time the airlines will start to get back up and running. So there'll be obstacles and challenges going forward, and that will be just one of them. Murphy, what are your views on the Formula 2 Speedway bikes? They seem to be a way of possibly cutting costs for the riders and perhaps juniors breaking into the sport. Yeah, pros and cons to that, Gene. I've not ridden one. We had them on at Bellevue at the Summer of Speedway a couple of years ago, and I think Gary Hare actually high-sided the first turn and broke his collarbone, so they're obviously a bit potent, and especially as you get to move Gary around. I see it. I don't see it replacing the modern bikes, but I don't see any reason why that can't be a discipline, a grade. And like I said, it is a great concept to reduce costs and maybe it's an entrance level kind of to the sport, so to you get more people participating. So, Craig Smith, pretty popular today, Craig. You're on form. Do you think the one-off world final should happen this year, maybe at Cardiff, without being the biggest venue instead of the GP series? Well, we touched on Cardiff just before. I'm sure the Speedway Grand Prix guys, are looking at all sorts of and eventualities, what they're going to do with the Grand Prix, the one-off world final, but also really love the Speedway Grand Prix in the series. So we'll have to see what happens there. Hi, Gaz. What's your career highlight? I don't know, actually. I don't really look back, to God honest, Phil. My career highlight. I rode for a long time. I won a couple of state championships. Won the International Speedway Masters down in Australia. That was a pretty good effort, with some quality riders. winning sort of league medals for the teams. Not that I won many, but one just sort of comes to mind. The knockout trophy was Newcastle in 2010, and obviously as a manager with you in 2017. So I didn't have the greatest career, Phil. Graham Darling, that's not big as Warsaw. John Shaw, Polish money will dry up if they start without fans. This won't be sustainable. Thoughts? We did that before, John. I'm sure they've done the numbers. There could be more to it than just the financial gains. People's sanity, to be quite honest. It'd be great to see any sports up and running just to give something to do and watch. Graham Melpus, I hope you're well. Hopefully back at Bellevue sometime. Yep, cheers. We'll hopefully see you too, Graham. And Prix around there in a little competition. Good on you guys. How are you, Susan? Do you know any of our aces I think you're riding in Poland? Well, I know we have 3 riders that have contracts in Poland. So that's Dan, Brady, and 4. Dan, Brady, Peter, and Jamin. So we'll be monitoring what happens there. But yeah, we've got 4 of the guys. Alan Atherton, is the National League going to dissolve and second halves replace it? Look, we were too early to be doing anything or cancelling anything at this stage, Alan. We are, as Bellevue and as the Premiership are looking at a junior league, and as you've probably seen at Bellevue, we run the academy, the Thornycroft Academy. So we've had plenty of second halves, and it's something that I would like to see happen more often too. It's a great opportunity for to get track time and for you guys to see them. Simon Bradshaw, as well as seeing Crumpy back, it's great the pantomime villain Pedersen back too. Yeah, that's very true. Like I said, yeah, I love it. I just reading the Speedway Star. Nick even says himself, he's box office. He is box office. Like there's no question. Obviously back in the day he was box office too. So the more we can add these guys back, it's great. I can't wait to have the Sheffield, the War of the Roses clash against Bellevue, and to see Nicky on track. He's a hard man to race against, and I'm sure that won't have changed. Dave Norcott, how are you, Dave? Yep, hopefully we'll get through this and resume. So when it is safe to, okay, that's all. Graham Thompson, how far do you think Dan Bewley can go on the sport? Well, now I think Dan has mentally come a long way. His natural ability is up there, but you've got to remember, natural ability can get you so far. There's a lot of areas that any rider has to consider, and can take you a long way, but doesn't necessarily take you to the top. Dan's doing everything right. I mean, think back just over 12 months ago, we stood by Dan. He was pretty smashed up, and he only got the all clear. I think it was on March the 29th. Dan went down to the hospital, was it? And down in Liverpool, and saw Dr. Nyam. It's one of the bone specialists, and he was the second opinion that we finally had from the Manchester Institute of Sport Health. And he got the green light to go racing. And probably before then, a lot of people thinking, is Dan ever going to race again? So the fortitude and the commitment and the mental side of it that Dan's already been through is puts him in a pretty elite group. Not many people recover and crack on and continue like he has done. And there's been some tough times for Dan last year. I mean, probably don't realise, but there was times when I think probably wanted to pack it up and just disappear from the sport because it was pretty hard. But we persevered with Dan, and I think that's the past now for him, and it's up and onward. So the World Championship, it's probably something he's aiming for this year, and hopefully we can get to see him participate in that. But he can go a long way in the sport, definitely. Gavin Affleck, Bellevue got plans to place and try to get more fans into NSS when the season starts. We're always trying, Gavin. It's been a promoter in these days is not easy, and it's not like we get a billboard back in the old days and stick it out the front and they come. There's more social media sides to the world now that you've got to look at, and obviously fun it doesn't come cheap. We use our social feeds as well as probably anybody. It's difficult trying to get people into sports stadiums, not just Speedway. So we're doing our very best. I'm sure we'll probably get criticised. We seem to be not doing enough and being more effective. But as a sport, I think we're giving it a good shot, and we have seen numbers. Attendance is definitely on an average increase over the last couple of years. So that's always very positive, and we're still working very hard, and until we can fill that stadium, we don't stop. Joanne Lewis line, just looking forward to see Mr. Crump. Yep, we're all pretty gutted too. I'm pretty keen. I know that for a fact, so can't wait to get going. Kevin Ashcott, is any of this year's team choose to race in Poland, such as Dan Bewley? Will they still be able to race for Bellevue when the season starts? This I think the current contract that the Poles are trying to implement means that there's restrictions, while there's travel restrictions, that they have to base themselves in Poland. Once those restrictions lift, I feel sure they can run in any league they choose. So those measures will be assessed, and we'll look at them as and when. Rex Manning, who is the best cook in your household? I'll say my wife, because I do a pretty good meal every now and then, but we do share the household chores, but I like being treated to meals, so I'm going to say my wife. Thanks, me. What was your favourite racing career? Racing track. It's funny. It's Pioneer Park in Queensland, near Townsville. Rode there a couple of times. Amazing track. And as I think about it, it's actually not too dissimilar to the National Speedway Stadium. Maybe not quite as longer straights as the Pioneer Park, but it's just round, just big wide, sweeping bends, banking. You could pass inside, outside. And I probably, because of my time up there, the weather's always great. Always enjoyed going up to there. Oxford always, I don't know why, Oxford was a good track for me. But as what suited my style was long straights, tight turns. Enjoyed that. So yeah, it's hard to go past Pioneer Park up in Queensland. But mind you, saying that, I did my farewell meeting at my hometown in Madura, Olympic Park Speedway, and they changed that. I mean, the old track was a dogger track. It was narrow, bumpy, tight, and certainly make you learn to ride a speedway bike properly. And they've changed that to moderation of to help the modern speedway bike really, and it flows really nice. And I did that one meeting at my farewell, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I think Dan and Brady may be wrong to do Poland, as number 8s get limited rides and points. Stuck with Britain, less money, and the chance of winning. You could be quite right, Graham, but they're big boys and they can make their own decisions. And we don't know how the actual Polish teams actually look. So, obviously, we'll monitor all that. Ebony 11, who's your favourite niece? Or that would have to be you, Ebony. My favourite Australian. My youngest favourite Australian niece. Salmo, hi. And he thought, what do you think of the John Day idea of having some other generation of riders put on a meeting to raise money for the COVID-19 after restrictions are lifted? Mentioned it being at Belle, you would take part. Yeah, I did see that comment from Mavis. Yeah, it's certainly got merit. anything to support the national health, I think would be a great incentive, and I think it should be done, whether I you or not. But Adrian obviously have spoken about it, and there's a lot of things to be considered. But at this particular time, our focus is just getting the sport back up and running. But yeah, it's certainly something that has to be considered. I mean, to see all those old boys back would be pretty good. But I also did notice that John Davis did say he didn't want to ride. That kind of defeats the object. But something could be done, and we'd consider it. So maybe there might be some talks we might hear from John. Babs, Binden, Kettle. Can't wait to get back to go. Hope everything's okay. All right. Hi, guys. Will the Craven run this year? Well, we hope so. We definitely hope so. And the way I'm sort of thinking that there might be a transition phase where we may have to allow time for all the boys the foreign boys, I should say, to get back to the country. So there could be like a 2-week sort of phase where we before we can start the league. So there might be an opportunity for us to fit to squeeze the Peter Craven in, and we want to continue running that. I think it's a great meeting, and we want to honour the great man himself. So we'll do everything in our power to try and to run the meeting. But obviously, time is going to be of essence there. Graham Darlington, insurance won't allow the Golden Greats finished. That's why the Golden Greats finished. I'm not too sure about the insurance reason, but the riders will have to take up their own insurance indemnities and policies if they want personal protection, income protection. But I'm sure there's an insurance company out there that could cover that. That wouldn't be a problem, Graham. Ben Duffield. How are you, mate? What average do you think Nicky will achieve for sure? I mean, he's a class act, isn't he? Nicky, he can trap, for forever. So you can make a start. That's 90% of the race is won. I think he'll be up there. I don't think he's going to. The British League is not as easy as you may think it is. You don't see a lot of these top riders running here, but don't underestimate the boys that do ride here. I think it's a very different scenario from when he was here many years ago. He's certainly a lot older, and his peak has definitely got behind him. But 3 world championships, it's pretty amazing anyway. But he'll run a pretty high average, 7.5, 8, I would think, easy. Why can't we sort the gating out? It's so frustrating waiting for all the 4 to ready to race. Maybe put a time limit on the set for 2 limit. I think that's sometimes some people look at it as part of the build-up. It's before the race. The gardening does go on for a little bit, but I think we're looking at 2-minute clocks this year anyway, so that would sort of solve that scenario. I have a theory that I'd like to see. I'd like to have a 1-minute box gate where the guys have to be in the box 1 minute before the race, and then they only get 1 minute on the track before the tapes go up. That way, all the 4 guys will be ready in that box, and when they're in that minute time, then you could do the changes from the exclusions there and then, and it saves the delay on the track. And they only got 1 minute once that gate opens. But that's another story. But it's frustrating. But obviously riders they get in this little mental zone, and they're trying to get the best preparation. So they're just in their own little world trying to do what they can do to win. Charles Wright, is our lampshade upside down? That's strange, doesn't it? That's IKEA. It's an IKEA lampshade, so they do things different, don't they? But no, it's not upside down. It still works. Susan Hartley, how about a ride around the National Speedway Stadium? No, I haven't. It's something that I would like to, but I've got a bike in the garage, and I know the boys have offered me their bike, but I just felt like I'm not in the condition no more as a speedway rider to go and hurt myself around there. And I do think these race speedway are pretty nuts, to be quite honest. But maybe one day. Katie Gordon, this is a question from Nigel Compton. Katie Gordon, the young female rider mascot, is getting better with more laps under her belt. Females will ever be allowed to mix in a mixed team or run the league on their own. There's no regulations to say that female riders can't ride in the teams 1 to 7. In fact, there's been several in the past. I know George Stansel's sister rode quite successfully for a while. And there was, I can't remember her name, Jessica Lamb. She actually got a ride down at Somerset, and I was actually in the team down at Somerset when she got a ride. And she got 1 or 2 points maybe in the meeting, but for some reason, it's not really sort of been a sport for female to really get into, and I think whenever the females have got onto the bikes, it's always been quite welcomed, and there's never been any hardships for them or anything that opposes them. I think, like you look at in the horse racing industry, there's a lot more female jockeys out there now, and they're very, very good at it. And I don't see that any reason why that won't happen in the speedway world. Katie's coming on great leaps and bounds. I probably think in the past, a lot of the females that have taken the sport up haven't really stuck around long enough, and then there might be reasons for that. I'm not aware of any, but like I ran a team with Jessica Lamb down at Somerset, and she got in the team on merit, but I think obviously her performance didn't keep her into the team, but that wasn't any other reason than it was performance based. So young Katie's doing great. I see she had her 16th birthday the other day. We'll keep an eye on her, and she's progressing nicely. What was the format you were trialing at the Peter Haven? You're just going to have to wait, Phil, till we restage it. There were different options. It's something to be a little bit more exciting, a bit different, and just watch this space. All right, Barraclough, do you still own any speedway bikes? I do, actually. Probably much to discuss to my wife. I have probably 2 or 3. One in Australia, one here, and I've probably got enough parts to build a couple more up in the loft. But I've actually going to try to make my own bikes in a Bellevue bike. I could probably, if Adrian Smith's listening, he's probably like, yeah, sure. I need to build a Bellevue replica bike for some time now. And I probably haven't got really too many excuses in this lockdown period, so I better get to work on that. Roger Hawksworth, what are the prospects of the GP returning to Australia? Amanda Castagna, the FIM director, speedway director or track racing director, has been pretty vocal that he wants to see it return to Australia. The new commercial rights holder of Eurosport, take over in 22, and have made noises that they want to see it in Australia. I know there's some talks, with some stadias in my homeland that might be an eventuality. I do think it will return to Australia. It's the FIM need to grow the sport and take it outside of Europe, and ideally, I would love to see any sporting world championship discipline be contested on 2 continents to class as a world championship. Because currently it's all condensed into Europe. And I'm not just talking speedway, I'm talking all sorts. Like American baseball, world champions, and it's only played in America. It's pretty crazy. But I think that we're very hopeful we'll see it in Australia. But there's a lot of work to be done. But I think the Eurosport guys seem pretty hell bent on trying to take it to Australia, which would be great. Simon Bradshaw, there was all-female team league in Denmark. Well, there you go. I wasn't aware of that, Simon. And yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool to know that. So I want to see if there's any footage on there. There we go. Any more questions? How are you on, guys? So, Ian Whitehead, do you ever lose your temper pits? As a rider, a few times, may have done. As a manager, no, I've been pretty all right a few times, I must admit, and got verbal to the referee, probably. As far as the riders, no, I tend not to. I kind of try to keep pretty sort of level with them, because you got to put yourself into their shoes. You know, they're putting their life on the line and, you know, doing their absolute very best. And sometimes it doesn't pan out as the way you picture it. And watching the guys and operate, you know, if I feel that someone's not pulling their weight and they're not putting the effort in, yeah, I'll give them a blast, no problem. But I don't really feel like I've had to in the past. I think, you know, I'm pretty stern with my words and I don't mix them. But as far as, you know, raising my temper and, you know, spitting them out, that's not really my style. So it's interesting when I see the riders do it. I think it's quite funny, as long as they're not my riders. It's the opposition. And yeah, I think you just, you know, you've got to really admire what these guys do. Like I said, it's their living at the end of the day. If they don't score points, yeah, they potentially don't eat. So it's you know, and sometimes you know, a rider, you kind of got to give him a rip and sort of give him a shake and sort of like, come on, mate, sort yourself out. And there's other riders you sort of got to sort of, you know, pat on the back and sort of, come on, you know, you've got to treat everyone on an individual basis. So, you know, you can go to the change room and you can give them a spill, and that has been done. But what's sort of said in the change room should stay in the change rooms. So yeah, you just got to, you know, to the situation, to be quite honest. Here, hello there. G'day, Gary. How are you, mate? Champion. Jason Pipe. Middlesbrough Football Club still your number one football team in the UK. For my sins, yes, they are, Jason. I chose Middlesbrough when I first came to England. I came over in 1990. I was based down sort of in Poole, because that's who I signed my Speedway contract with. And Bournemouth weren't much of a team, and Poole never much of a team. And my first season in 1991 was in Middlesbrough, as you recall. So they were my chosen football team, and I have stuck with them, you know, through the years, and you know, I still support them as such. I can't say I'm a fanatical football supporter when it comes to English football, but they're my chosen team, and you know, I like to see them win, but it doesn't ruin my weekend if they don't win. And but yeah, we had some good years back in the late 90s, and this season hasn't been going so great. But anyway, there you go. Next question. Mike Robson, did you ever race against my favourite rider, Moran? Probably not, no. But here's one for you. Sean, obviously the Americans used to come to Australia quite frequently and you know, ride at Madura. And I think one of my first purchase of a senior bike we bought through Tom Cirillo in the States. For some reason, you could buy the bikes in America cheaper than you could buy them, obviously, direct from England and Australia. So Sean, my father cut a deal for Sean to bring it out on the freight. And long story short, Sean and his mechanic, Jimmy Van Dyke, they would stay at our place. And you know, I think the time was Lindsay Gordon Hemway's daughter was going out with Sean. Would stay with us. So we got to know Sean quite well. And I remember one particular night, Sean was racing International Masters at Madura. The Madura Masters was, and his bike was playing up, and he jumped on my bike, and he was a god, and Sean went out there and just cleaned up. So yeah, Sean's a bit of a hero of mine. Still stay in touch with Shuey, just a legend of the sport. So yeah, but no, I don't recall racing. I was too young, but just probably got into seniors, but you know, different spectrums of the level. Obviously, he was pretty damn good too. Mark Drummond, how do you think Max will get on full-time Grand Prix? I think Max will be fine. Obviously to what level, time will tell. But he has all the qualities to be a very good Speedway Grand Prix rider. He has some attributes that will take him far. So it's interesting. There's a lot of things to take into the Grand Prix. It's a great achievement just getting there, let alone going on with it. But he's got a good little setup. But I wouldn't expect too much of Max in his first season. But obviously this season's no one knows what's going to happen. See Grand Prix, so hopefully he gets his time and we can all see. But obviously he did quite well in a couple of Grand Prix last year. It is a different level, I think, when you get there to the Grand Prix to doing a few reserve replacements, being a full-time permanent rider. There's different pressure, so it's how he's going to deal with that will be probably key. Your favourite teammate and rider, and who's been your favourite rider to manage? Favourite teammate. I don't know if Petri Coco. He was my favourite. It was like favourite team because I shared a house with Petri Coco back in the mid-90s, and we raced in the same Swedish team. I think Petri was racing the Premier League, I think, in Reading, and I was the Elite League with Poole, and we shared a house. He used to drive me crazy, absolutely drive me crazy. But funny guy. So him and his wife and a couple of kids are doing well. They're back in Finland, but he was a pretty cool guy to hang out with. He was always jovial, always up to tricks, and just a cool kid, cool customer. My favourite rider to manage, that was pretty easy. Kenneth Pierre, by far. One of the most professional riders I've ever come across. I would quite openly say before the demise of Coventry Speedway and Kenneth came available, I had one rider, to fill the team, and Kenneth fitted that slot just nicely, and got to know him. I raced against Kenneth as a young kid when he first came on the scene, and didn't have much to do with him. And just an ultra professional. Put the team first. I really felt sorry for Kenneth last year in the Speedway Grand Prix Challenge, when he had that, bike condition problem and failed to qualify, because, I think Kenneth, about 7 or 8 days leading up to that championship. And obviously we had 2 meetings that week, and he didn't miss a half. He rocked up and put everything into it. And there's just so many little aspects. And I think Kenneth will be a great team manager in time to come, because he questioned everything. If I didn't have an answer for him, he'd be on my case. But he was very professional and one of the best guys I've ever managed. But as far as that goes, dealing with Dan Belle, he's a pretty cool customer too. Just very chilled and going places. So, who was your Pat Moore? Who was your Speedway hero? Pretty easy one, that one. Phil Crump by far. Grew up in Madura. Phil Crump was a legend. The town, and probably the reason why I got involved in the sport. And then I was very fortunate enough to travel to the UK with him when he made his comeback in 1990. And we're lifelong friends. He's just a bloody great bloke. So he was my hero in the day. And then many of them, I think watched Simon Wigg, the late Simon Wigg, just his green colourful image, portrayed the sport, and Sam Malenko, all the Americans, they had that sort of dynamic and flair. And as I got more involved, that era back in I was racing junior speedway in the 80s. I mean, Eric Gunnison and Hans Nielsen were just like the guys, the guns, and now for me to even know them and be friends with them is just, I find it quite bizarre, to be quite honest. Jackson Andrew Smith. Hiya, Jack. Did you ever race the same team as my dad and his brother? Don't ever remember racing with Paul. I know when I first came to the UK, when I went to Middlesbrough in 91, 92, Paul was one of the teams. I'm not sure which. But Andy at the time was up there. But I never raced in the same team as Andy. Only Reading number 8 in 2006, and then Andy got injured, and then I actually went in to replace Andy for the remaining of the season, and obviously I stayed with the club a couple of years after that. But no, actually we never raced in the same team, which is quite bizarre because we both had plenty of clubs. Carl Liddy just joined. Hi, Carl. You've missed all the action, mate. What's about the rev limiters? The current rev limiters are on the bike now, on the ignition systems. Don't really have too much of an effect, to be quite honest. It probably does save the engine at the start line. I mean, I think for me, I always like to give it a good old rev at the start line, so it probably would have saved some cost on my engines. But you can hear on some riders get away with it. I think probably it probably helps the lighter riders, if I'm quite honest, because sometimes you do need to get those flywheels humming, and the rev limit does stop that. So it helps the lighter riders in that aspect. But I think once the bike's up and running, they really very rarely hit the limit once they're on the track, unless the track's very slick and they're spinning up. But that's only going to help to get traction. So that's a pro. I don't really have a comment. I've not really ridden one with a rev limiter, although we did build an ignition system back in 97, 98 with my mechanics at the time, Frank Billington and Keith Turner. That was before its time. It was a total programmable ignition. You could put a rev limiter on, and that was pretty. That put 2 horsepower on the engine straight away. But it got banned within about 3 weeks of building it, so that wasn't a very cost-effective exercise. Ian Slater, hi. Dust golf clubs off now. Could be allowed to open in a couple of weeks. I normally get my annual game. I haven't had my annual game for a while. So yeah, I look forward to that. Ian. Neil Caper, I've still got my bikes. I heard so many people in the past say that when you retire, don't sell your bikes because in 10 years' time you're going to want to buy them back. So for my sins, I've still got mine. To be quite honest, when I got them in 2014, I had a pretty long career, and I think I just turned the key on the workshop and walked away from it. And if it wasn't for Max Frick coming to live with us, I probably wouldn't have gone back out there for quite a while. So we had to tidy it up, and so he could use it for a season. Well, I think that's pretty much done us for today. I really appreciate all your questions, and hopefully I've answered them as best I can. I think we just got to be mindful in the current situation that we've got to listen to the government's directives and guidelines, and that's like, stay at home, stay, support the NHS and save lives, and do all the right things, and hopefully we can get over this massive hurdle that we've got in front of us at the moment and we're dealing with. Keep your sanity, and hopefully the sport can get back up and running. And I said, we want to support the association to do what we have to do to make sure it's get the sanitarium in place and everything is safe and sound, so we can go back and operate as best we can. Obviously, we've got some sponsors that have been on board for the Belle, which we're very grateful for their help and their assistance and the support and in this time, which I think is right. Rent Truck, and we've got Thorny, Croft, Solicitors, ATI, Cool Runnings, and this is Taurus. There's probably a couple more I've not mentioned, but we're very appreciative of all their help. Our owners, Tony Robin and Robin Softwell, they've done great, been supportive, backing us to try and get us through this pandemic. So we're grateful for them, and obviously Adrian Smith's doing wonders behind the scenes too, and Christine in what would have been office. So, and the track staff and the volunteers that we've had in the past, we want to see them all get back together and show on the road. So stay safe, check the NHS, and save lives. That's the key. All right, cheers, guys.